The baby would not stop crying. The sound filled the enormous penthouse like a fire alarm that nobody knew how to turn off. High ceilings, glass walls, polished marble floors, everything in the apartment reflected the noise and sent it echoing back again. Leo Romano screamed with the relentless determination of a tiny human who believed the entire world had betrayed him. And the man holding him looked completely defeated. Jones Romano stood in the center of the living room, his massive shoulders tense beneath an expensive charcoal suit. He had returned from a late meeting barely 20 minutes earlier. The faint metallic scent of gunpowder still clung to his jacket sleeve. The meeting had involved 3 rival syndicates, 2 corrupt shipping executives, and a man who would probably disappear before sunrise. None of that had bothered him. But this child in his arms. This was something else entirely. Leo wailed louder. Jones shifted awkwardly, trying to cradle the baby the way he had seen nurses do in the hospital months earlier. It did not work. The crying escalated. Across from him, seated calmly on a leather chair that probably cost more than a car, was a sharply dressed woman watching the scene unfold. Her name was Cassandra Vale. She was the director of Vale Premier Domestic Staffing, a luxury agency that provided nannies to the richest families in New York. Royal families, tech billionaires, movie stars, and occasionally, though never officially, extremely powerful men with questionable reputations. Cassandra adjusted the gold bracelet on her wrist and tried to smile politely over the noise. "Mr. Romano, please understand our position." Leo screamed again. Jones closed his eyes briefly. Cassandra continued carefully. "Our nannies are trained professionals. They are accustomed to high-profile households and demanding schedules." Another cry ripped through the room. "But your situation is unique." Jones opened his eyes slowly. Dark eyes. Cold eyes. The kind that made grown men reconsider their life choices. "What situation?" The question was quiet, but the temperature in the room seemed to drop 10 degrees. Cassandra swallowed. "Your security detail alone includes 8 armed guards. The building elevator requires biometric access. Your residence is essentially a fortress." Leo kicked his legs angrily. Jones tried bouncing him. That only made things worse. Cassandra continued. "My board has authorized a special placement arrangement." She slid a document across the glass coffee table. Jones glanced at it. Then he looked up again. $20,000 per week. She forced a professional smile. "Hazard compensation." Jones stared at the number. $20,000 per week. To feed a baby, change diapers, sing lullabies. The most dangerous man in New York let out a soft breath. "You are charging me $20,000 to keep my son alive." Cassandra quickly corrected him. "For a highly specialized nanny in a high-risk environment." Jones leaned back slowly. Leo was still crying. Still red-faced. Still furious with existence. "You think my son is a liability?" "No, Mr. Romano. You think I am." Silence. Cassandra said nothing. She did not need to. The truth hung in the air between them. Leo screamed again. Jones looked down at him helplessly. His late wife had died during childbirth. Leo was all he had left of her. But the truth no one dared to say out loud was this. Jones Romano knew how to build empires. He knew how to destroy enemies. He knew how to move millions of dollars through offshore accounts without leaving a trace. But he had absolutely no idea how to care for a child. Leo's crying turned into choking sobs. Jones muttered something under his breath. Cassandra gathered her documents. "I will give you 24 hours to reconsider the offer." Jones did not respond. He was still staring at the baby like it was an unsolvable puzzle. Cassandra stood and walked toward the elevator. 2 armed guards escorted her out. The steel doors closed. The penthouse fell silent again, except for Leo's desperate crying. Jones ran a hand through his dark hair. "This is ridiculous." He tried rocking the baby. Leo screamed louder. From the far side of the room, behind a long dining table made of imported walnut, someone shifted quietly. A young woman stood there. She had been cleaning the apartment during the entire meeting. Her gray uniform blended into the background so well that most people never noticed her. Her name was Angela Morales. She was 24 years old. She worked 2 jobs. One as a waitress in Queens. Another as a part-time maid in luxury apartments. She had crushing debt left from her father's medical bills. And like most invisible workers in wealthy homes, she had learned the most important survival skill of all. Stay quiet. Stay invisible. Do your job. What? Angela had been wiping fingerprints off the dining table when the baby started crying. Now she stood frozen, cloth still in her hand. Watch, eh? The scene was heartbreaking. The most feared man in the city looked completely lost. Leo screamed again. Jones rubbed his temples. I have negotiated ceasefires between rival cartels. Another scream. But I cannot get a 6-month-old to stop crying. Angela hesitated. Every instinct told her to stay silent. People like Jones did not like being interrupted, especially not by maids. But the crying kept going, and something inside her chest twisted painfully. She knew that cry. She had heard it before. Her little brother used to cry like that when he was a baby. Angela slowly set the cleaning cloth down. Her heart hammered. Then she stepped forward. Sir. The single word cut through the room. Jones turned instantly. His reaction was pure instinct. His hand moved toward the concealed gun beneath his jacket. His eyes locked onto her. Angela froze halfway across the room. Who are you? His voice was dangerously calm. Angela, she said quietly. I clean here twice a week. Jones studied her. A small maid in a plain gray uniform, holding nothing but a cleaning cloth. Leo screamed again. Angela spoke carefully. I think he's gassy. Jones blinked. What? The baby. Angela nodded toward Leo. You're holding him too stiffly. Jones looked offended. I am not holding him stiffly. Leo cried louder. Angela hesitated. Then she took a slow step closer. If you hold him upright and pat his back gently, it might help. Jones stared at her. For several seconds. The room went completely silent except for Leo's cries. Angela expected to be thrown out, or worse. But Jones did something unexpected. He held the baby out. Show me. Angela approached slowly. She lifted Leo carefully into her arms. Her movements were calm and confident, like someone who had done this many times before. She rested the baby against her shoulder, then began gently patting his back. What? Really? Oh. Leo continued crying for another 20 seconds. Jones watched intently. Then suddenly, a tiny burp escaped. Leo froze. The crying softened. Angela continued rocking him gently. Another burp. Then silence. The baby relaxed completely. Within a minute, Leo was asleep. Jones stared at Angela. His expression had completely changed. The mafia boss who terrified entire cities looked genuinely stunned. You stopped him. Angela smiled faintly. He just needed to release gas. Jones looked at the sleeping baby, then back at her. The silence stretched. Finally, he asked a single question. How much? Angela frowned. For what? To take care of him. Angela shook her head slowly. No. Jones raised an eyebrow. I'll pay you $10,000 a week. She shook her head again. No. Jones leaned forward slightly. $20,000. Angela looked at the baby, then back at him. I'll do it for free. Jones stared at her. People did not offer things for free in his world. Free meant a trick, a trap, a hidden agenda. His eyes narrowed. Why? Angela met his gaze. For the baby. Silence filled the room. Jones studied her carefully. He had spent his entire life detecting lies, but Angela Morales was telling the truth. And that made her the most dangerous mystery he had encountered in years. Jones Romano did not trust free things. In his world, everything had a price. Money, loyalty, fear, or every favor came with a hidden hook. So when Angela Morales said she would care for his son for free, the most dangerous man in the room did the only thing he ever did when something did not make sense. He investigated it. Jones stepped closer. Angela was still gently rocking Leo, who had fallen completely asleep against her shoulder. The apartment had grown quiet again, the kind of quiet that made every sound feel heavier. Jones studied her carefully. She did not look like someone trying to deceive him. Her uniform was worn at the cuffs. Her shoes were inexpensive and slightly scuffed. A faint exhaustion lived behind her eyes. But there was something else there too. Control. Confidence. The kind of calm that only came from responsibility. You said free. Angela nodded. Yes. Nothing in this city is free. I know. Jones waited. She did not elaborate. That alone intrigued him. Most people rushed to explain themselves in front of him. They talked too much when they were nervous. Angela did not. Finally, he said quietly, Explain. Angela shifted Leo carefully and laid the sleeping baby into the nearby bassinet. She tucked the blanket gently around him. Only after she made sure he was comfortable did she turn back to Jones. I owe someone money. Jones leaned against the edge of the table. How much? $32,000. The number was small to him. But he said nothing. Angela continued. My father got sick last year, lung cancer. The hospital bills were more than we could pay. Jones nodded slowly. He had heard stories like that before. But hospitals don't break kneecaps when people can't pay, he said. Angela shook her head. No, hospitals just send you to collections. Her voice dropped slightly. I borrowed the money from someone else. Jones already knew what that meant. Oh. Angela hesitated. Then she said the name. Marco DeLuca. Jones's eyes hardened. Marco DeLuca was not just a loan shark. He was a parasite who ran illegal gambling dens across Queens. He worked for a rival organization and had been trying to expand into Jones's territory for months. Angela continued quietly. My father died 3 months ago. I'm sorry. She nodded but did not dwell on it. I tried to keep up with the payments, but the interest keeps growing. Jones knew exactly how that worked. Predatory loans were designed to trap people, not help them. When is the deadline? Angela looked down. Friday. That was 3 days away. Jones folded his arms. And you think living here will protect you? Angela glanced toward the armored elevator doors and the guards outside. Ness. A small corner of Jones's mouth twitched. She was not wrong. Very few people in New York would be stupid enough to walk into his building looking for trouble. He looked at her again. You want sanctuary? Angela nodded. You need someone to care for Leo. And you need protection. That's? Jones studied her carefully. There was no fear in her voice. Only honesty. That was unusual. What happens when the debt is paid? Angela answered immediately. I leave. That answer surprised him. Most people tried to attach themselves permanently to power. Angela was already planning her exit. You don't want to stay. I don't belong here. Jones glanced around the massive penthouse. Most people would disagree. Angela shook her head. This isn't my world. Jones watched her quietly. For the first time in a long while, he felt something unexpected. Respect. Finally, he spoke. All right. Angela looked up. You can stay. Her shoulders relaxed slightly. But there will be rules. She nodded. I expected that. Jones raised one finger. You never take Leo outside this building without security. Understood. Tatiana, you don't ask questions about my work. Angela gave a faint smile. I wouldn't want the answers anyway. Jones almost smiled. Though. His voice turned serious. If anything happens to my son. He did not finish the sentence. He did not need to. Angela met his gaze steadily. I won't let anything happen to him. Jones believed her. And that made the decision easier. And we have a deal. Angela exhaled slowly. Thank you. Jones shook his head. This isn't charity. He nodded toward the bassinet. You earned it. For the next 2 weeks, the penthouse transformed. Angela created something the apartment had never had before. Routine. Every morning she opened the curtains so Leo could see the sunrise. Every afternoon she carried him around the apartment while explaining simple things to him in Spanish and English. Every evening she played soft music while feeding him. Leo stopped crying so much. He started laughing. The sound surprised everyone, even Jones. The mafia boss began adjusting his schedule without realizing it. Meetings started later. Phone calls became shorter. Sometimes he simply stood quietly in the doorway of the nursery watching Angela read children's books to Leo. Angela noticed, but she never commented. Then one night everything changed. It was almost 2 in the morning. The apartment was silent. Angela woke suddenly. Something was wrong. She listened carefully. At first she thought it was her imagination. Then she heard it. Leo! But he was not crying. He was making a strange choking sound. Angela ran into the nursery. Leo's face was flushed bright red. His tiny chest was moving rapidly. His breathing sounded shallow. Angela's stomach dropped. Fever. Bad fever. She scooped him up immediately. His skin was burning. Angela rushed into the hallway. Jones! Her voice echoed through the penthouse. The response was immediate. Within seconds, the door to the master bedroom burst open. Jones stepped out with a pistol already in his hand. What happened? It's Leo. Jones rushed forward. Angela held the baby out slightly so he could see. He has a high fever. Jones placed his hand against Leo's forehead. His expression changed instantly. Get the car ready, he shouted toward the hallway. One of the guards ran. But Angela shook her head. What? Jones looked at her sharply. We're not waiting. If we rush to a hospital in the middle of the night with 10 armed guards, every police scanner in Manhattan will hear about it. Jones hesitated. Angela continued. Babies get sudden fevers sometimes. What are you suggesting? Give me 15 minutes. Jones studied her. If his temperature doesn't drop, we go to the hospital immediately. Jones nodded once. Tell me what you need. Angela moved quickly. Warm water, not cold. Jones carried the small baby bathtub into the bathroom. Angela checked the thermometer. 103 degrees. Dangerous, but not impossible. They worked together in silence. Angela gently cooled Leo's skin with a damp cloth. Jones held the baby carefully. For 15 long minutes the fever refused to break. Then slowly, very slowly, Leo's breathing eased. His temperature began dropping. Angela leaned back against the wall. He's stabilizing. Jones looked at the thermometer again. Still high, but safe. Relief flooded his face. He looked at Angela. You just saved my son's life. Angela shook her head softly. I just did what anyone would do. But Jones knew better. Most people would have panicked. Angela had not. And in that moment something shifted inside him. The quiet maid who cleaned his floors had just proven she was far more valuable than anyone in his empire. Unfortunately, someone else had noticed too. Standing in the hallway outside the bathroom was a man watching everything. Rico Vargas, Jones's second in command, and the look in his eyes was not gratitude. It was calculation. Rico Vargas had always believed 2 things about power. First, loyalty was temporary. Second, weakness was fatal. For 10 years he had stood beside Jones Romano while the empire grew from a handful of smuggling routes into one of the most powerful criminal organizations on the East Coast. He had helped build it. He had bled for it. And one day he intended to inherit it. But lately something about the boss had changed. It started the day the maid moved in. Angela Morales. A nobody. A girl from Queens who cleaned floors and carried grocery bags. And somehow, in less than a month, she had become the most important person in the penthouse. Rico leaned against the hallway wall, watching through the cracked bathroom door. Inside, Jones sat on the edge of the bathtub holding Leo carefully while Angela cooled the baby's forehead with a cloth. They worked together like parents. Like partners. Like a family. Rico's jaw tightened. Family made leaders weak. Weak leaders lost empires. And Rico Vargas had no intention of watching 10 years of work collapse because his boss had developed a conscience. He quietly walked away before anyone noticed him. Inside the bathroom, Angela was wrapping Leo in a towel. The baby's fever had dropped. His tiny eyes fluttered closed again. Jones looked like someone who had just escaped a disaster. "He's going to be all right," Angela said softly. Jones nodded slowly. "You knew exactly what to do." Angela shrugged. "My mom worked night shifts when I was a kid. I helped raise my little brother." Jones stood. He took Leo carefully and placed him back into the crib. For a moment, the massive man just stood there looking down at the sleeping child. Then he turned toward Angela. "You saved him tonight." Angela leaned against the counter, exhausted. "Babies get sick sometimes." Jones shook his head. "Not like that." Silence settled in the room. Then Jones spoke again. "Tomorrow I'll have someone pay your debt." Angela stiffened. "No?" Jones blinked. "No. I didn't make this deal for money. You made it for protection." "Yes." Jones folded his arms. "Paying the debt removes the threat." Angela shook her head. "It also puts me in your debt." Jones watched her carefully. "And you don't want that." "No." The honesty in her voice made something unexpected stir in his chest. "Respect." Angela continued quietly. "When people take favors from powerful men, it never stays a favor." Jones laughed softly. "You're smarter than most people I work with." Angela smiled faintly. "I grew up around people like Marco DeLuca." That name made Jones's expression darken slightly. DeLuca was a problem he had been meaning to deal with anyway. But Angela had made her position clear. She wanted sanctuary, not charity. He could respect that. "Fine," Jones said. "But if Marco comes here looking for trouble, I will deal with him." Angela nodded. "That's fair." Neither of them noticed Rico standing in the hallway again. Listening. Learning. Planning. Over the next week, Angela settled fully into the penthouse routine. She organized Leo's schedule with quiet efficiency. Morning walks on the balcony. Afternoon playtime on the giant Persian rug in the living room. Evening baths that filled the marble bathroom with bubbles and laughter. The baby began thriving. Leo laughed constantly now. Even the guards outside the elevator started smiling when they heard him. The apartment felt different. Warmer. Away. Jones found himself lingering around the nursery more often. Sometimes he would stand quietly in the doorway watching Angela read to Leo. Other times he asked questions. "What language is that?" Angela glanced up. "Spanish." "You're teaching him 2 languages?" "It helps brain development." Jones nodded slowly. "You know a lot about children." Angela hesitated. Then she admitted something she rarely told people. "I studied pediatric nursing for 2 years." Jones frowned. "What happened?" Angela looked down at the book in her hands. "Maddie. Tuition became impossible after her father got sick. So she dropped out." Jones leaned against the doorframe. "You could go back." Angela shook her head. "Maybe someday." Jones said nothing. But the thought stayed with him. Later that night, Rico knocked on the door of Jones's private office. "Come in." Rico stepped inside. The office was dim except for the glow of city lights through the windows. Jones sat behind the massive desk reviewing shipping reports. "What is it?" Rico closed the door. "We need to talk about the girl." Jones didn't look up. "What about her?" Rico leaned forward slightly. "You trust her too much." Jones turned a page. "She saved my son's life. She is still an outsider." Jones finally looked up. "So were you once." Rico ignored that. "People are talking." "What people?" "The captains." Jones leaned back slowly. "And what are they saying?" Rico chose his words carefully. They think you're gang soft. Silence filled the office. Jones's voice became very calm. Is that what you think? Rico hesitated. That hesitation said enough. Jones stood. The difference in their size was immediately obvious. Jones was taller, broader, more intimidating. But Rico had always believed intelligence beat brute force. I'm saying enemies notice weakness. Jones walked around the desk. Angela's voice drifted faintly from the hallway as she sang softly to Leo. Jones listened for a moment. Then he spoke. That sound. Rico frowned. What sound? My son laughing. Jones stepped closer. For 6 months this apartment sounded like a funeral. Rico said nothing. Jones continued. Now it sounds like a home. Rico's voice hardened. Homes don't run empires. Jones stared at him. No, but men who remember why they fight do. The room went quiet again. Finally Jones said something that ended the discussion. The girl stays. Rico nodded slowly. But inside his mind the decision was already made. Angela Morales had become a threat. Not because she was powerful, but because she had changed the most powerful man Rico knew. And that meant she had to go. 2 nights later the first move was made. Angela was in the kitchen sterilizing baby bottles when the elevator chimed. A guard stepped inside carrying a small package. It came through the lobby. Angela wiped her hands and walked over. Who is it from? The guard checked the label. No name. Angela opened the box carefully. Inside was a dog collar. Attached to it was a photograph. Angela's blood ran cold. The photo showed the front door of her apartment building in Queens. Carved deeply into the mailbox beneath her name was a jagged symbol. An axe, and on the back of the photo was a short message. The handwriting was crude. Friday passed. You still owe me. I know where you are. Marco DeLuca had found her. Angela felt her hands start to shake. The guard noticed. You okay? Before she could answer, another voice spoke from behind her. No? Rico Vargas leaned casually against the doorway. His expression was unreadable, but his eyes were watching her very closely. And Angela suddenly realized something terrifying. Marco DeLuca should never have been able to get a package inside this building, which meant someone had helped him. And Rico Vargas was smiling. Angela stared at the photograph for a long moment. Her old apartment building. The rusted mailbox. The deep carved X. Marco DeLuca's message was simple. He had not forgotten about the debt, and he had found where she was hiding. Angela slowly placed the photo back into the box. Her heart was beating faster now, but her face remained calm. Years of surviving difficult situations had taught her something important. Fear was a luxury. Thinking clearly was survival. Rico watched her closely from the doorway. You look surprised, he said lightly. Angela lifted her eyes. I thought Marco would take longer to find me. Rico chuckled. People like Marco always find their money. Angela studied him carefully. There was something wrong about this situation. The building had biometric security. Every visitor was logged, every delivery screened by armed guards. Marco DeLuca could not have sent a package inside this tower, unless someone inside helped him. Angela said quietly, how did this get past security? Rico shrugged. Shift change, mistakes happen. But the smile in his eyes did not match the casual tone. Angela understood immediately. This was not a mistake. This was a warning. And Rico wanted her to know he was involved. Just then heavy footsteps echoed in the hallway. Jones walked into the kitchen. The temperature in the room seemed to drop. He noticed Angela first, then the open box on the counter, then the photo. His eyes hardened instantly. What is that? Angela handed him the note. Jones read it once. Then again. The silence that followed was dangerous. Rico cleared his throat. Looks like the girl's past caught up with her. Jones did not look at him. How did this enter my building? Rico gave the same answer. Probably during the guard rotation. Jones slowly lifted his gaze. Anyone who knew him understood that look. It meant someone had made a very serious mistake. Nothing enters this building without clearance. Rico shifted slightly. Well, apparently something did. Jones folded the note carefully. Then he asked one simple question. Who signed for it? The guard near the elevator checked the log. No signature. Jones's eyes moved back to Rico. And for a moment neither man spoke. The tension between them filled the entire room. Angela broke the silence. Jones. He turned toward her. I should leave. Rico's smile returned. That might be the safest option. Angela continued. If Marco comes here looking for me, he could cause trouble for Leo. Jones stared at her. Then he spoke very slowly. No? Angela blinked. This isn't your fight. Jones stepped closer. My rules. He looked at the note again. Marco DeLuca doesn't scare me. Angela knew that. But something still felt wrong. Rico had delivered the message. And Rico looked far too satisfied. Jones turned toward his lieutenant. Prepare the car. Rico frowned. For what? We're going out tonight. Angela looked confused. Where? Jones folded the note and slipped it into his pocket. Somewhere public. 2 hours later, Angela stood in front of the mirror inside the guest suite. She barely recognized the woman staring back. Instead of her gray maid uniform, she wore a deep blue evening gown that flowed like water to the floor. Her hair had been pinned back elegantly. A simple diamond clip held it in place. Angela touched the fabric nervously. This is too much. Behind her, Jones adjusted the cuff of his tuxedo. No? He studied her reflection. It's exactly enough. Angela turned. I don't understand why we're doing this. Jones finished tying his bow tie. Because Rico expects you to hide. And instead we make it impossible to touch you. Angela frowned. Where are we going? Jones gave a small smile. The Lombardi Foundation Gala. Angela recognized the name immediately. It was one of the most elite charity events in the city. Politicians, artists, billionaires, everyone important attended. You want to bring me there? Jones nodded. And Leo? Angela looked shocked. The baby? Jones walked over and lifted Leo gently from the crib. He stays with us. Angela understood the strategy immediately. No one would attempt violence at an event filled with cameras, donors, and powerful guests. Jones was turning the entire city elite into witnesses. Rico, however, saw something different. He watched Jones escort Angela down the penthouse staircase. The maid now looked like royalty. And Jones placed his hand on the small of her back with quiet possessiveness. Rico's jaw tightened. This was becoming a problem. But he already had a backup plan. The gala at the Grand Astoria Hotel glittered with chandeliers and polished marble floors. Music from a live orchestra floated through the air. Hundreds of guests filled the ballroom. When Jones Romano entered the room, conversations stopped. Everyone noticed. But what surprised them was the woman beside him. Angela carried Leo in a velvet baby sling. The baby slept peacefully. Whispers spread quickly. Who was she? Where had she come from? Why was Jones bringing a child to a mafia-adjacent political gala? Angela felt the attention, but kept her composure. Jones guided her toward a private seating area overlooking the ballroom. His personal security surrounded them. For 2 hours the evening remained calm. Jones greeted influential guests. Angela stayed close, rocking Leo gently when he stirred. But across the room Rico kept watching. And eventually the moment he had been waiting for arrived. Leo began fussing. Angela whispered to Jones. He needs a diaper change. Jones nodded. I'll have Arthur escort you. Arthur, the head of security, stepped forward. I'll take you to the private restroom. Angela followed him down a quiet hallway away from the ballroom. The corridor was empty. Soft carpet muffled their footsteps. Arthur stopped outside a luxurious restroom. I'll wait here. Angela entered. She placed Leo on the changing table. The baby kicked happily. For a moment Angela allowed herself to relax. Then she heard the door lock. Angela froze. Slowly she turned around. A man stood between her and the exit. His cheap suit looked ridiculous in the elegant bathroom. But the knife in his hand was very real. Angela recognized him instantly. Marco DeLuca. He grinned. Well, look at you. Angela's pulse thundered. How did you get in here? Marco tapped the hotel keycard against his palm. Friend helped me. Angela already knew which friend. Marco stepped closer. Here's the deal. Angela clutched Leo protectively. You're leaving with me. No. Marco's smile faded. You still owe money. Angela glanced toward the door. Arthur is outside. Marco laughed. Not anymore. Angela felt her stomach drop. What did you do? Nothing permanent, Marco said casually. Just enough electricity to put him to sleep. Angela's mind raced. Marco continued. Your boyfriend Rico paid good money for this job. The truth hit her instantly. Rico had orchestrated everything. Marco grabbed her arm. Come quietly. Angela's fear turned into something sharper. Rizzo! She reached behind her without looking. Her hand closed around a heavy glass perfume bottle on the counter. Marco lunged forward. Angela swung the bottle hard. It smashed against his nose. Marco screamed and staggered back. The knife clattered across the tile. Angela grabbed Leo and ran toward the door. Before she reached it, the door exploded open. The wood splintered inward. Jones Romano stood in the doorway. His expression was something far more dangerous than anger. It was absolute fury. Marco froze. Jones stepped inside slowly. You touched them. Marco tried to speak. Jones moved first. One brutal punch crushed Marco's throat. The loan shark collapsed instantly. Jones grabbed him and slammed him against the wall. Glass shattered everywhere. Marco crumpled to the floor unconscious. Jones turned toward Angela immediately. His voice was suddenly different. Gentle. Are you hurt? Angela shook her head. No. Leo giggled happily in her arms. Jones exhaled slowly. Then he whispered something that made Angela's heart stop. Rico did this. Angela nodded. Yes. Jones's eyes turned cold. Then Rico just signed his own death warrant. The ride back to the penthouse was silent. Outside the armored car, Manhattan glittered with late-night lights. Traffic moved in quiet rivers through the city streets. To everyone else it looked like an ordinary evening. Inside the car, a war had already begun. Angela sat in the back seat holding Leo against her shoulder. The baby had fallen asleep again, unaware of how close danger had come. Jones sat beside her. His hands were clenched. Not in panic. In calculation. Across from them, Arthur monitored messages from the security team. The man still had a faint red burn mark on his neck from the stun device Marco DeLuca had used. Arthur looked up. Marco is secured. Jones did not ask where. He already knew. Arthur continued. He's at the Red Hook warehouse. Jones nodded once. Angela spoke softly. Rico paid him. Jones looked at her. Yes. Marco said it himself. Jones leaned back in the seat. The quiet rage in his eyes was far more frightening than shouting. Rico Vargas had been his lieutenant for 10 years. 10 years of loyalty. 10 years of trust. 10 years of building an empire together. And tonight Rico had tried to kidnap the woman protecting his son. Angela studied Jones carefully. You already suspected him. Jones did not deny it. The package. Angela nodded. No one gets past your security. No. The car turned onto the private street leading to the tower. Jones spoke again. But suspicion and proof are two different things. Angela understood immediately. You're going to confront him. Jones looked out the window at the towering building ahead. Ness. The penthouse elevator opened onto complete silence. The guards immediately sensed something had changed. Arthur gave quick instructions. Lock the floor down. 2 men moved to secure the elevator access. Another checked the hallway cameras. Angela carried Leo to the nursery while Jones disappeared into his office. 20 minutes later, Arthur knocked softly on the nursery door. "Miss Angela." She turned. "Yes? The boss wants you downstairs." Angela frowned slightly. "Why?" Arthur's expression was serious. "He says you're the key witness." Angela gently placed Leo in the crib. The baby slept peacefully, completely unaware of the storm building around him. Angela followed Arthur down the hallway. The private elevator descended to the underground garage, then continued lower, to the warehouse level. When the doors opened, the smell of cold metal and ocean salt filled the air. The Red Hook Warehouse. Angela had heard the name before. This was where Jones handled problems. Inside the massive warehouse, a folding table had been placed in the center of the floor. Around it stood several captains from Jones's organization, men with hard eyes and expensive suits. At the head of the table stood Rico Vargas. He looked irritated. "Not afraid." "Not yet." Rico turned when Jones entered. "Moss?" Jones walked forward calmly. Angela walked beside him. The captains looked confused. Rico's eyes widened slightly when he saw her. "You're here." Jones stopped at the table. "You sound surprised." Rico recovered quickly. "I thought you stayed at the gala." Jones leaned his hands on the table. "I did." Rico glanced at Angela. "She doesn't belong here." Jones ignored that. Instead, he asked a simple question. "Did you hire Marco DeLuca?" The warehouse fell silent. Rico blinked. "What?" Jones repeated the question. "Did you hire Marco DeLuca?" Rico laughed. "Of course not." Jones nodded slowly. Then he looked at Angela. "Tell them." Every man in the warehouse turned toward her. Angela felt the weight of their attention. But she had spent months surviving inside Jones's world. Fear did not control her anymore. She spoke clearly. "Marco said Rico paid him $50,000 to kidnap me tonight." Murmurs spread around the table. Rico's face darkened. "You're taking the word of a maid." Angela met his gaze calmly. "You also gave Marco the hotel keycard." Rico scoffed. "This is ridiculous." Jones still had not raised his voice. "That's not the only thing." Angela reached into the folder Jones had handed her earlier. Inside were printed financial statements. She laid them on the table. The captains leaned closer. Angela continued. "While I was cleaning the office 2 months ago, I saw Rico's private ledger." Rico's eyes flashed. "You were spying." Angela ignored him. "I memorized the numbers." Jones watched her with quiet interest. He already knew Angela had an unusual memory, but even he had not realized how powerful it was. Angela pointed to the documents. "These are shipping revenues from the New Jersey port operations." She slid another page forward. "And this is an offshore account registered under the company Apex Logistics." Rico stiffened. Angela finished calmly. 20% of the shipments have been redirected into that account for 8 months. One of the captains spoke. "You've been stealing from the family." Rico slammed his hands on the table. "She is lying." Jones finally moved. He stepped closer. His voice was quiet. "Deli, are you?" Rico's confidence began cracking. "This girl doesn't know what she's talking about." Angela looked at him calmly. "The account number ends in 291. Rico's face went pale. Angela continued. "The funds are routed through Bessemer Trust in the Cayman Islands." Silence filled the warehouse. The captain stared at Rico. In their world, betrayal was the worst possible crime. Rico backed away slightly. "She is guessing." Jones picked up the document. Then he spoke the final words. "The routing numbers match." Rico realized the truth in that moment. He had lost. And Angela Morales, the maid he had tried to remove, had destroyed him. Rico's expression twisted with rage. "You let her poison your mind." Jones stepped closer. "You poisoned your own." Rico's voice became desperate. "She made you weak." Jones shook his head slowly. "Though?" He glanced toward Angela. She reminded me what strength actually looks like. Rico laughed bitterly. You're choosing a maid over your lieutenant. Jones's answer was simple. I'm choosing loyalty over betrayal. He nodded once to Arthur. Arthur stepped forward. Two guards grabbed Rico's arms. Rico struggled violently. You can't do this. Jones's voice remained calm. You tried to kidnap my son's protector. Rico froze. Jones continued. You stole from the family. The captains nodded grimly. The verdict was obvious. Rico's fate was sealed. As the guards dragged him away, Rico shouted one final accusation. This empire will collapse because of her. Jones did not respond. The warehouse door slammed shut. Silence returned. One of the captains finally spoke. Moss. Jones looked at him. Hill. The man nodded toward Angela. Seems like the maid just saved the family. Jones glanced at Angela. A faint smile touched his lips. She's not the maid anymore. Angela looked confused. Jones spoke quietly. She's the reason this empire still stands. And for the first time since entering the warehouse, every powerful man in the room looked at Angela Morales with something very different from dismissal. Respect. If you enjoy stories where the invisible rise and power bows to truth, make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss the next story.